because what I'm about to share with you is going to rearrange some furniture in your spirit. If a man is truly falling in love with you, he is not going to hand you a script. He is not going to walk up to you with roses and a speech and a ring on day one. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. A man who is falling, and I mean really falling, the kind of falling that scares him a little bit, that man is going to test you. He's going to test you in ways you may not even recognize while it's happening. And baby, if you don't know what you're looking at, you might have failed those tests without ever knowing they were tests to begin with. Now, hear me on this. I'm not talking about games. I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm not talking about some grown man playing hopscotch with your heart because he's bored on a Tuesday. No, I'm talking about the quiet, almost holy way a man's spirit checks to see if the woman standing in front of him is the real thing. Because when a man starts to feel love, real love, not lust, not convenience, not you'll do for now, something inside him gets quiet. Something inside him gets careful. Something inside him gets scared. And out of that quiet, careful, scared place, he starts running little tests, not to hurt you, to protect himself, to confirm what his heart is already whispering to him. And by the end of this conversation, sister, you are going to know exactly what those tests look like. You're going to know how to spot them. You're going to know how to pass them without shrinking yourself, without begging, without twisting yourself into a pretzel to keep him happy. Because passing his test doesn't mean performing for him. Passing his test means being so rooted in who you are that his little checks bounce right off. You like rain off a windshield. That's the woman he can't shake. That's the woman he marries. That's the woman he tells his boys about with a look in his eye that says she's different. So let me sit down across from you like your uncle who's seen too much and cares too much. Let me break this down for you the way nobody ever broke it down for me when I was younger. Let me tell you what a man does when he's falling in love, and what you need to do so that when he tests you, he doesn't find a scared little girl trying to prove herself. He finds a woman, a whole, grown, unshakable woman. And that, baby, is when everything changes. See, here's what most women don't understand about men. And I say this with love, not judgment. Men are wired differently. We process love differently. We express love differently. And more importantly, we protect ourselves from love differently. When a woman starts to fall, she wants to tell somebody. She wants to call her best friend. She wants to write in her journal. She wants to look at his picture and smile like a fool at a red light. That's beautiful. That's how y'all are built. But when a man starts to fall, sister, something else happens. He gets quiet. He gets watchful. He starts studying you the way a man studies a house he's thinking about buying. He's checking the foundation. He's checking the pipes. He's checking whether the roof leaks when it rains. Because if he's about to move his whole life in, he needs to know, is this structure real? Or is it just paint on cardboard? And that studying, that watching, that quiet checking, that's the test. That's what we're talking about today. That's the thing you've been feeling, but couldn't name. That's the reason you've been sitting up at night wondering, why did he pull back a little? Why did he ask me that strange question. Why did he go quiet after I said that one thing? Baby, he wasn't losing interest. He was testing. He was checking. He was making sure. Now let me tell you something that's going to sting a little bit, and I need you to sit with it. Most women fail these tests, not because they're not good enough, not because they're not beautiful enough, not because they're not smart enough. They fail because nobody ever told them the tests were even happening. So when he goes quiet, she panics. When he pulls back a little, she chases. When he asks a hard question, she performs the answer she thinks he wants to hear instead of telling him the truth. And every one of those responses, sister, tells him the same thing. She's not ready yet. She's not rooted yet. She's not the one yet. I don't want that to be you. I refuse to let that be you. Not after today. So let's start with the first test. And this one, ladies, is the one almost every woman misreads. Almost every single one. A man who is falling in love with you is going to test your reaction to his absence. Read that again. He is going to test your reaction to his absence. Not his presence, his absence. Because any woman can act right when a man is showering her with attention. Any woman can smile when the texts are flowing and the flowers are arriving and the compliments are stacking up like poker chips. That doesn't tell him anything. That doesn't reveal you. What reveals you is what you do when he goes quiet for a day, for 2 days, for 3. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying a man who loves you should ghost you. I'm not saying disappearing is romantic. It's not. But every man at some point early in the falling is going to pull back a little bit. Sometimes it's conscious. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes he doesn't even know he's doing it. He just gets busy for a couple of days. He just gets in his own head. He just needs to breathe. And in that little window, sister, he is watching. He is watching to see who you become when he's not feeding you attention. Because if he is going to give you his life, and understand me, a man giving you his life is not a small thing. It is a mountain he has to climb inside himself. He needs to know you don't collapse the second he steps away. So what does the woman who fails this test look like? Let me paint the picture for you because I've watched it 100 times. It's 9:14 p.m. She hasn't heard from him since yesterday morning. She checks her phone. Nothing. She puts it down, picks it up again. Nothing. Now her heart starts doing that little flutter thing. Now her mind starts running. Did I say something wrong? Is he mad? Is he losing interest? Is there another woman? And before she knows it, she's typed out a paragraph, deleted it, typed another one, deleted it. Finally sent a, "Hey, is everything okay?" with a little worried emoji. Then she waits. And when she doesn't respond in 10 minutes, she sends another one and then another one. And by the time he finally does respond, she's already handed him the answer to his test. And the answer is she's not rooted. Her peace lives inside my phone. Her sense of self rises and falls with my attention. And baby, no man on God's green earth wants to be responsible for another grown person's peace. Now let me tell you what the woman who passes this test looks like. She notices he's been quiet. Of course she notices. She's not a robot. She's a woman with feelings. But she doesn't panic. She doesn't spiral. She goes about her life. She goes to work. She calls her mama. She works out. She reads a book. She cooks herself a real meal. sits down at her own table and enjoys her own company. When he finally does reach out, and he will, sister, he will, she responds warmly, not coldly, not passive aggressively, warmly. But she doesn't interrogate him. She doesn't demand an explanation. She doesn't say, I was worried sick. She just picks up where they left off, with her feet planted firmly in her own life. And in that moment, without her saying a single word about it, he learns something about her that will echo in his mind for weeks. She has her own gravity. She doesn't orbit around me. She has her own light. And I'm telling you right now, that woman just moved from someone I like to someone I might not be able to live without. That fast. Let me tell you about a woman I know. Let's call her Maya. Maya was dating a man. Good man, decent man, but a man who had been burned before. So he was cautious, the way a lot of good men are cautious. Early on, he pulled back, went quiet for about 4 days. Now, the old Maya, the Maya from 2 years earlier, would have lost her mind. She would have sent the texts. She would have called her girlfriends crying. She would have posted something vague and sad on her Instagram story, hoping he'd see it. But this Maya, the Maya who had done the work on herself, the Maya who had sat in her own silence and learned to enjoy her own company, this Maya just kept living. She went to her Pilates class. She had brunch with her sister. She finished the book she'd been reading. And on day 5, when he texted her, hey, I'm sorry I've been quiet. A lot going on this week. She wrote back, no worries at all. I hope you're okay. I've been out here living my life. Let me know when you're ready to catch up. That was it. No lecture, no sulk, no performance. Just a rooted woman being a rooted woman. And baby, that man told me later, he said, that was the moment I knew. That was the moment I stopped playing. 6 months later, they were engaged. You hear me on that? Passing the absence test doesn't mean pretending you don't care. It means caring about yourself just as much as you care about him. Now let me get to the second test. And this one, sister, is subtle. This one is one you'll miss if you're not paying attention. A man who is falling in love with you is going to test your reaction to his weakness. Read that again too. He's going to test your reaction to his weakness. Because every man walking around out here is carrying something. Every one of us, we might look strong. We might sound strong. We might have the job and the car and the confident walk. But behind that, sister, there is something soft, something scared, something we don't show most people. And when a man starts to fall for you, at some point, he is going to let you see a little piece of that softness. Not the whole thing, not yet. Just a piece, just a corner of it. And what you do in that moment will tell him everything he needs to know about whether you are safe. Now, let me be honest with you about something. Most women say they want a man to be vulnerable. Most women say they want him to open up. Most women say they want him to share his feelings. But when he actually does it, when he actually cracks that door open and shows her that scared, tired, tender place inside him, a whole lot of women flinch. They don't mean to, but they flinch. Maybe they say something dismissive. Maybe they try to fix it too fast. Maybe they get uncomfortable and change the subject. Maybe, God forbid, they use it against him later in an argument. And the second any of that happens, sister, that door slams shut. And it may never open again. Not with her. Not the whole way. So how do you pass this test? Let me tell you, when he shows you a soft piece of himself, when he tells you about the father who left or the woman who broke his heart, or the dream he's afraid to chase, or the job he's worried about losing. You don't fix. You don't lecture. You don't compare. You just receive. You look at him. You listen. You put your hand on his hand and you say something simple. Thank you for telling me that. That must have been hard. I've got you. That's it. That's the whole test. He is not looking for a therapist in that moment. He is looking for a safe place to land. And if you become that safe place, even one time, you become something he cannot replace. Because listen to me carefully. A man can find sex anywhere. I hate to say it like that, but it's the truth. A man can find a pretty face anywhere. A man can find someone to laugh at his jokes anywhere. But a safe place to be soft, a safe place to be scared, a safe place to not have his manhood tested every 5 minutes, that, sister, is rare. That is precious. That is the thing a man will move mountains for. And once he finds it in you, he is not letting you go. Let me tell you about another woman. Let's call her Rachel. Rachel was dating a man who on paper seemed almost too confident, too together, too everything's fine. But one night they were sitting on the couch after dinner and something came on the TV about a father and son. And this grown man, this 6'2", put together, successful man, got quiet. And then his eyes filled up just a little, just enough. And he mumbled something about his own father who had passed when he was 12. Now, Rachel had a choice in that moment. She could have made a joke to lighten the mood. She could have said, "Oh, don't be sad, babe." She could have told her own longer, sadder story to top his, but she didn't. She turned toward him. She didn't say a word for about 10 seconds. She just looked at him with soft eyes. And then she said, "I would have loved to meet him." That's all. That's all she said. And that man, that strong, capable, guarded man, laid his head on her shoulder and cried for the first time in 20 years. And baby, from that night forward, he was hers. Completely. Because she had shown him that his softness was safe with her. And that, sister, is the kind of woman a man doesn't just love. That's the kind of woman a man builds his life around. Now let me get to the third test. And this one is going to make some of you uncomfortable, but we're grown so we can handle it. A man who is falling in love with you is going to test your standards. He is going to test how easy it is to lower them. He is going to test how quickly you will accept less. Not because he wants you to accept less, but because he needs to know if you will. Because a woman who will lower her standards for him will lower them for anyone. And a man who is falling in love does not want a woman who is easy to convince. He wants a woman who is impossible to convince to settle. Now, this test looks different for different men. Sometimes it's small. He shows up 30 minutes late without a real reason. He forgets something important. He cancels a plan at the last minute. And he's watching. He's watching to see what you do. Do you shrug it off, laugh nervously, say, "It's fine, don't worry about it," when it is very much not fine? Or do you say calmly and clearly, "Hey, I understand things happen, but this doesn't work for me. If you can't make it, please tell me earlier next time." Not a lecture, not a fight. Just a woman with standards stating them plainly. Now listen, a woman who lowers her standards to keep him thinks she is winning. She thinks, "I'm being easygoing. I'm being cool. I'm not being one of those difficult women." Baby, no, she is not winning. She is teaching him exactly how little she requires to stay. And I promise you, sister, once a man learns how little you require, he will give you exactly that. Not because he's a bad man, because he's a human man. Human beings meet the bar you set. Not the bar you wish you had set, the bar you actually set. The woman who passes this test doesn't get loud. She doesn't get dramatic. She doesn't threaten to leave every 5 minutes. She just calmly and consistently communicates what she will and will not accept. And then, this is the part most women miss. She actually holds the line. If he shows up an hour late for the third time, she doesn't scream. She just says, "You know what? I think we should reschedule. This isn't working for me tonight." And she goes home. and she doesn't chase and she doesn't guilt trip. She just goes home to her own life, her own peace, her own dignity. And that man, sister, is going to lie in his bed that night staring at the ceiling. And he's going to think one thing: I cannot lose her, because he just found out something rare. He just found out she means what she says. And a woman who means what she says, in a world full of women who don't, is the eighth wonder of the world. Sister, do you hear me? Standards are not a weapon. Standards are not a punishment. Standards are the way you teach a man how to love you well. And here's where I want to stop for a second, because I know some of you are listening to this thinking, Steve, I've been doing it wrong. I've been lowering my standards. I've been chasing. I've been panicking when he goes quiet. I've been dismissing his softness because I didn't know what I was looking at. Baby, listen to me. I don't want you to sit in shame. I don't want you to beat yourself up. Nobody ever taught you this. Nobody ever sat you down and explained the tests. How were you supposed to know? You weren't, but you know now. And from this moment forward, you have a choice. You can keep doing what you've been doing and keep getting what you've been getting. Or you can stand up, brush yourself off, and become the woman who passes every test, not by performing, but by finally, fully, unshakably being herself. That choice is yours. But I have a feeling I know which one you're going to make. Now let me get to the fourth test. And this one, sister, is deeper than the first three. This one goes right to the heart of it. A man who is falling in love with you is going to test your consistency. Read that one carefully. He is going to test your consistency, not your intensity. Not how big you can love him in one dramatic weekend. Your consistency. Because here's the truth about men that nobody says out loud. Men don't fall in love with the peak of you. Men fall in love with the average of you. Men fall in love with who you are on a Tuesday, not who you are on Valentine's Day, who you are when you're tired, when you're stressed, when your hair isn't done, when the makeup is off and the lights are low and there's no reason to perform. He is going to watch, sister. He is going to watch to see if the woman he met on date 3 is the same woman on date 30. If the way you spoke to him when you were trying to win him is the same way you speak to him after you got him. If the softness you showed him in the beginning is the same softness you show him in month 6. Because here's what men have learned, baby, and this is the truth most women don't want to hear. A whole lot of women change once they feel secure. A whole lot of women get sweet to catch him and get sour to keep him. A whole lot of women pull out the good stuff for the audition and then hand him the leftovers for the run of the show. And every man deep down is afraid of that. Every one of us. We're afraid we're going to wake up one day next to a woman who is not the woman we fell in love with. So he tests quietly, constantly. He tests your consistency. He watches to see if you are still kind when the shine wears off. He watches to see if you still listen when there's nothing new to tell. He watches to see if you still touch him softly when there's no camera, no anniversary, no reason. He watches to see if the version of you he fell for is a costume or a character. Now, sister, hear me. This is not about being fake sweet forever. This is not about performing perfection. You are allowed to have bad days. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be human. Consistency does not mean sainthood. Consistency means your core doesn't shift. It means the way you value him doesn't drop the second you feel like you've got him. It means when he pulls you close on an ordinary Wednesday night, the softness he feels is the same softness he felt on the first night you let him hold your hand. That kind of consistency, baby, is intoxicating to a man. It is safety. It is home. It is the reason he will never look sideways at another woman, because he knows what he has is real and it stays real. Let me tell you about another woman. Let's call her Tasha. Tasha had been through some things, divorced, 2 kids, tired in her bones. And when she met her second husband, she made a decision inside herself. She said, I'm not going to catch him with one woman and keep him with a different woman. I'm going to be the same all the way through. And she was not perfect, not always cheerful, but the same. When she was tired, she said, baby, I'm tired tonight. I love you. I just need a quiet minute. When she was stressed, she said, I'm stressed, but this isn't about you. I still see you. I still love you. When she was happy, she poured that happiness right on him. And baby, that man will tell anybody who listens that he has never known a woman like her.
Never.
Because she was the same. She was who she said she was. And do you know how rare that is in this world? Do you know how many people carry 2 or 3 faces around and rotate them depending on the audience? A woman with one face, one true face, one honest face is a treasure that a man will spend the rest of his life protecting. That can be you. That should be you. Now, I want to slow down for a moment because we've been moving fast, and I want to make sure something is landing in your spirit. Every one of these tests I've been describing, the absence test, the vulnerability test, the standards test, the consistency test, they all share one common ingredient. You know what it is? Self. Every single one of these tests is passed by a woman who has a strong, settled relationship with herself first. He goes quiet. You pass because you have you. He shows you his soft side. You pass because you know your own soft side well enough to receive his. He pushes on your standards. You pass because your standards were not built for him. They were built for you long before he ever showed up. He watches your consistency. You pass because who you are is not a strategy. It's a home you actually live in. Sister, this is why the work you do on yourself is never wasted. Even the years you spent alone, even the years you thought were empty, even the years you cried yourself to sleep wondering when your season would come. Every one of those years was building the woman who could pass these tests without breaking a sweat. Nothing was wasted. Nothing. Now let me keep going because there's more. There are more tests, and I want you to have all of them because I want you to walk out of this conversation armed. I want you to be dangerous, sister. Dangerous in the best way. The way a woman is dangerous when she finally fully knows her worth. The 5th test. A man who is falling in love with you is going to test how you handle conflict. And baby, this one is important because every relationship, every single one is going to have friction. There is no such thing as a couple that never disagrees. Anybody who tells you that is lying or one of them is not being honest about how they feel. Conflict is not the enemy. Conflict is the classroom. And how you handle conflict, especially early on, tells a man more about your character than 100 perfect date nights ever could. Here's what a man is watching for. When something goes wrong between the two of you, and something will, sister, count on it. Does she attack or does she engage? Does she throw grenades or does she build bridges? Does she bring up things from 4 months ago or does she stay on the actual issue at hand? Does she call names? Does she use his weaknesses against him? Does she threaten to leave every time she gets angry? Or does she stay in the room, stay in her body, stay in her adult self and say, I'm upset? Here's why. Let's talk about it. Sister, that is a woman a man will crawl through fire for because he knows no matter how bad things get, she will not turn into a weapon. She will not use his heart as target practice. She will fight for the relationship, not against him. Now let me be real. This is hard. This is one of the hardest things in a relationship because when you get angry, when you feel disrespected, when you feel unseen, the impulse for all of us, men and women, is to protect ourselves. And often the way we protect ourselves is by attacking first, getting loud first, getting cold first, shutting down first. But every time you do that, sister, you fail this test a little bit. And every time you don't, every time you stay soft, even when you're angry, every time you say, I love you and I need to tell you something that's hurting me, instead of you always this, you never that, you pass this test. and you pass it big. The woman who fails the conflict test is the woman who thinks winning the argument matters more than winning the relationship. Baby, listen to me. You can win every argument in your relationship and still lose the man. And you can lose every argument and still keep the man forever. Because it's not about winning. It's about how you fight. It's about whether at the end of every hard conversation, he still feels loved by you. He still feels respected by you. He still feels like you're on his team. Let me tell you about another woman. Let's call her Denise. Denise and her husband had a rough couple of years. Money was tight. His mama was sick. Her job was stressful. Everything that could go wrong pretty much did. And they fought. Oh, they fought. But here's what Denise did that saved that marriage. Every single time, no matter how bad it got, she made a rule for herself. Before she said anything cruel, she would take a breath and ask, is this going to build us or break us? And if it's going to break them, she wouldn't say it. She'd wait. She'd walk away for 10 minutes. She'd come back when her voice was steady, and then she'd say what she needed to say without poisoning it. And that man will tell you to this day that Denise saved their marriage. Not with grand gestures, with 1,000 tiny choices to fight for him, even when she was mad at him. That's a woman. That, sister, is a woman. Now, I want to talk about the sixth test, and this one is more subtle, but I promise you, every man does it. A man who is falling in love with you is going to test your relationship with money. Now, hold on, don't get up. I'm not saying he's going to check your bank account. I'm not saying he's looking for a rich woman. I'm saying he's watching to see who you are around money. Because money is one of those things that reveals people. Whether you have a lot or a little, whether he has a lot or a little, money puts pressure on character. And a man who is falling in love needs to know what your character does under pressure. He's watching to see if you're generous or grasping. He's watching to see if you order the most expensive thing on the menu on a first date without a thought. Or if you ask him what he thinks looks good and choose thoughtfully. He's watching to see if you offer to pay sometimes, or if you always assume he's got it. He's watching to see whether you talk about money with resentment or with peace. He's watching to see if you respect his hustle or if you diminish it. And baby, none of this is about how much you make. It is completely 100% about how you are with what you have. A woman on a small budget who carries herself with grace and gratitude is a queen. A woman on a big budget who acts entitled and greedy is exhausting. Money doesn't make character. Money reveals it. So how do you pass this test? Be honest about money. Don't pretend to be richer than you are. Don't pretend to be poorer than you are. Be gracious when he pays. Be generous when it's your turn. Talk about money like an adult, not like a child. Have your own coins, sister. Have your own coins. There is nothing as attractive to a good man